After 3 years of IVF, my wife admitted the baby was her coworker's. She said I was just there to obey. Even her mom defended it. So I stapled the DNA test to the nursery wall and said, "Congrats, you two deserve each other's lies." It was around 1:30 a.m. when she said it. We were mid-fight, the kind of fight that starts quiet but turns mean halfway through. I don't even remember what started it. Maybe something stupid, like me forgetting to warm the bottle or not folding the tiny onesies fast enough. But her voice cut through the room like glass when she said, "You should have known, Mark. She's not yours." At first, I thought she meant it as one of those cruel, meaningless things people throw in anger. So I laughed a weird, broken laugh and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then she looked me dead in the eye, calm, cold, like she was telling me the time. "I wanted a real man's genes," she whispered. "You were just the wallet and the driver to the clinic." 3 years. 3 years of injections, appointments, tears on bathroom floors, and her hand squeezing mine so hard during egg retrieval, I thought she'd break a bone. I remember asking, my voice shaking, "So who's the real man then?" She smiled, actually smiled, and said his name, Ethan, her coworker, the one who always texted her memes. The one she said was just funny. And then, because she couldn't stop, she added, "Everyone at work knows. We just figured you'd never notice. You're good at obeying." That word, obeying. She went upstairs after that. Left me standing there with the baby monitor in my hand and her voice still echoing through my chest. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee, kissed the baby. Hummed while she packed for the baby shower her friends were throwing that afternoon. I just sat there watching her, this stranger in my kitchen, moving through my house like she owned it all. Her mother called me before they left, saying I should get over my pride and think of the baby. Like I was the one who broke something. That's when I decided I was done being quiet, done obeying. So while they were gone, I drove to the clinic. Paid for a rush paternity test using one of the backup samples we had on file from the IVF process. The results came back faster than I thought, just 2 lines of text that changed everything. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. I printed 5 copies, stapled one to the nursery wall right above the crib, taped one to the fridge, slipped one inside the diaper bag, left one on her pillow, and folded the last one in my pocket. Then I filled the house with the pink and gold baby shower balloons she'd been so excited about, set out the cupcakes, dimmed the lights. When I heard their car pull into the driveway, I stood by the nursery door and waited. The moment she walked in, holding the baby, her mother right behind her, I looked straight at her and said, 3 years ago, we were the couple everyone pitied. The ones who couldn't conceive. The ones who smiled too hard at baby showers and left early. I remember the first time a doctor said IVF. My wife, Jenna, squeezed my hand like it was a lifeline. She cried in the car afterward and said, "We'll beat this, right?" And I said, "Of course we'll beat this together." I meant it. Every word. We drained savings. Sold my motorcycle, put vacations on hold. Every injection, every hormone patch, every test was a new mountain. I watched her cry on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. after failed cycles, watched her throw syringes into the trash with shaking hands. I kept saying, "Next time. We just have to believe." When we finally got pregnant, it felt like the world had given us mercy. We were that couple now, the miracle story. Everyone congratulated us. Jenna started glowing again. I thought maybe, finally, we'd made it through the storm. But looking back, the cracks were there. I just didn't want to see them. She started working later. Said she was catching up on projects with Ethan, the new guy from marketing. He was everything I wasn't: loud, charming, cocky. The kind of guy who called everyone bro and got away with it. I met him once at a company picnic. He shook my hand too long and said, "Man, you're lucky. Jenna's a keeper." I remember laughing awkwardly. Jenna brushed it off, saying, "He's harmless." Except harmless people don't text your wife at midnight. They don't make her giggle in corners during office parties. And they sure as hell don't show up on her phone as work buddy Red. But I let it go. Because we were finally pregnant. Because I thought hormones made people act weird. Because after 3 years of heartbreak, I just wanted peace. The baby came early, a little girl named Hazel. She had her mother's nose, her smile. I didn't even think twice when the nurse commented that she didn't really look like me. Jenna was radiant. She posted pictures with captions like, "My hero husband who never gave up on us," and "Love built this family." I was the proud dad holding the camera, posting updates, thanking everyone for their prayers. And yet there was something cold behind her eyes, something distant. She started talking to Ethan again, even while holding Hazel in her arms. When I asked her to put her phone down, she'd roll her eyes. I remember one night, she said, "You should be grateful, Mark. Not every man gets this." I didn't understand what this meant until the night of the fight, when she whispered that poison into the air and everything inside me cracked open. That's when I replayed every doctor visit, every late-night call she said was work-related. Every time she brushed off my questions with that fake, tired smile. And it hit me, she must have planned this. Not a moment of weakness, a decision. She knew whose child she was carrying long before Hazel was born. But what I didn't know, what I was about to find out, was that everyone around her had helped keep the secret, even her own mother. It was the night before our 5th wedding anniversary when everything started to unravel. Jenna was asleep upstairs, the baby monitor glowing soft green beside her. I was in the office, trying to distract myself with work, but her words from that fight kept echoing in my head. I wanted a real man's genes. I couldn't shake it. I started pulling out the IVF paperwork from the filing cabinet, the forms, receipts, clinic summaries. We'd kept everything, labeled neatly in a blue binder because Jenna liked to stay organized. On the 3rd page of the embryo transfer documents, something didn't look right. A donor code. It should have been blank, we were supposed to use my sample. But there it was, donor ID #E74M. I didn't remember signing off on that. I called the clinic the next morning, pretending to be Jenna's husband asking for clarification about our files. The receptionist hesitated, then transferred me to the lab manager. He said, "Sir, per your wife's written consent, we used an alternate donor after your sample didn't meet viability standards." "What consent?" I asked. He paused. "The one your wife signed in the presence of her coworker, Ethan Miller. He was registered as her emotional support contact." My hands went cold. I hung up without saying another word. I walked into the kitchen and just stood there staring at the fridge, at the ultrasound photo, the baby announcement magnet, the IVF warrior sticker. My vision tunneled. That's when I realized she'd made this decision behind my back. She'd planned for Ethan's child and used my name, my money, my body as cover. And somehow, her mother must have known. She'd always been weirdly protective of Jenna, dismissing me anytime I raised concerns. She once told me, "You don't understand how hard it is for a woman to feel whole." Wholeness, apparently, came from betraying the man who built her that life. I didn't confront Jenna right away. Instead, I started gathering proof. Emails, text backups, screenshots of clinic invoices that listed extra fees I didn't recognize. There were notes from E. Miller approving lab access. There were timestamps matching nights she'd claimed to be stuck at work. The deeper I dug, the more I realized how long this had been going on. Even the nurses at the clinic knew. One of them, a woman named Bry, called me after I left a voicemail pretending I needed clarification for insurance claims. Her voice was soft, nervous. She said, "Mr. Hanley, off the record, we were told not to contact you about any donor details. Your wife and her support contact handled everything personally." That was the moment something inside me died. Not just the marriage, the idea of us, because she hadn't just cheated. She'd rewritten my life, but I wasn't done. If she wanted to treat me like the obedient, naive husband, I'd let her believe it, just long enough to set everything in motion. So I smiled when she asked me to help plan Hazel's christening. I nodded when she said Ethan would be there as a friend. I even laughed when her mother told me I should let the past go. But inside, I was cataloging every detail, every lie, every face that had looked me in the eye knowing the truth. And I decided that when I exposed them, I'd make sure every single one of them remembered exactly what they'd done. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was home early from work because the power company was supposed to fix a line near our street. Jenna thought I was gone all day. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen table, careless for once. The screen was dim, but one notification was still glowing. Dropbox, new shared folder from Ethan Miller. My stomach flipped. I moved the mouse. The folder name read, Hazel's Real Story read. I opened it. There were photos. Dozens, some from the clinic, some from inside the lab. A few of them showed Jenna in her hospital gown, smiling next to Ethan. He was holding her hand. Another showed him cutting the umbilical cord. Then there was a video file titled for her 18th birthday. I clicked it. Ethan's voice came through first. "Hey, kiddo, if you're watching this, it means you're old enough to know where you really come from. Your mom and I wanted you to have this, so you'll always know the truth that you're born from love, not science." Then Jenna appeared. Her hair was messy, but she was glowing. She looked right into the camera and said, "Hazel, if you ever wonder why your dad doesn't look like you, it's because the man raising you isn't the one who gave you life. He's someone who wanted a family so badly, he let me give you the best genes possible." And then she laughed. That soft, satisfied laugh I used to think meant happiness. I stopped the video there. My hands were shaking. The sound of her voice, so calm, so deliberate, it broke something in me that I didn't know could still break. I copied everything onto a flash drive and slipped it into my pocket. Then I deleted the access logs from the laptop. That night, Jenna came home humming, baby on her hip. She kissed my cheek, acting like the world was fine. I wanted to scream at her to throw the laptop across the room, but I didn't. Instead, I said, I was thinking maybe we should make a video for Hazel too, something from both of us." Her eyes lit up. "That's such a sweet idea." Yeah, sweet. Over the next few days, I pretended to play along. I filmed clips of her with Hazel, snippets of us smiling, the perfect fake family. What she didn't know was that I was also recording other things, her calls with Ethan, the way she talked to her mother about keeping me calm, even the way she laughed when she said, "He'll never actually leave. He's too scared." But Ethan, he made the biggest mistake of all. He sent me a text meant for her. It popped up one night around 11 p.m. while she was in the shower. The message read, "You sure he bought the story about the donor paperwork? I can't believe you pulled it off. After the shower, let's finally tell him I'm Hazel's real dad. He deserves to know he paid for his own replacement." That was the night I stopped sleeping. Because that wasn't just betrayal anymore. That was intentional cruelty. They were planning to humiliate me, publicly. At the baby shower of all places, the event I was still expected to host. And that's when I decided, fine, they wanted a show, I'd give them one they'd never forget. By morning, the rage had burned down into something cold and steady. The kind of focus that feels almost peaceful. That's when I knew I was ready. First, I called the clinic's ethics board. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just laid out the facts, the falsified consent, the donor substitution, the falsified records with Ethan's name logged as an authorized contact. I attached every file, every timestamp, and the donor ID I'd found. They said, "Sir, this is serious. We'll need to open an internal investigation." "Do that," I said, "but you'll want to do it fast. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this very soon." Then I went to my bank and quietly moved half of our joint savings into a separate account. I knew she'd notice eventually, but by then it wouldn't matter. I wasn't planning to be here when it blew up. That afternoon, while Jenna was at work, I started setting the stage. I cleaned the house, decorated for the baby shower she'd been bragging about for weeks, and set up the little gift table with all the pastel wrapping paper and mommy-to-be signs. But I also did something else. I mounted a small GoPro in the corner of the living room, angled perfectly toward the front door. Another one hidden behind the baby's crib. I wasn't planning to post it online or anything. I just wanted proof. Proof of what she'd say when she realized she'd been exposed. Then I printed everything, the paternity test, the Dropbox screenshots, Ethan's text, the clinic logs. I put each in a clear folder labeled "The Truth." The last one, the one that mattered most, was the paternity result. I stapled it to the nursery wall above the crib, right between the name decals she'd picked out for Hazel. After that, I went outside and tied the baby shower balloons she'd bought, the pink and gold ones that said "Welcome Baby," to the porch railing. I wanted everything to look perfect, normal, because that's what she cared about most. Appearances, the photo ops, the perfect Instagram family. Before they got home, I sent one last text, not to her but to Ethan. "Hey man, come by the house around 5. Jenna wants to show you the nursery before the shower. Should be a nice surprise." Then I waited. The house smelled like cupcakes and baby lotion. Hazel was asleep in her crib, the faint hum of the white noise machine filling the silence. I sat in the armchair across from the nursery door, holding the folded paper in my hand, the same paternity test I'd had in my pocket that first night. And I waited. At 4:57 p.m., I heard the car door slam. Voices, laughter, her mother's shrill tone, Jenna's high-pitched excitement. And then another voice, male, smug, Ethan, perfect timing. As they came through the front door, still laughing, I stood up. My heart wasn't racing anymore. My voice didn't shake. They stopped when they saw me. "Mark," Jenna said, "what are you doing home?" "You were supposed to," I gestured toward the nursery. "Go on, there's something I want you to see." Her mother frowned. "What is this about?" "Just go," I said. They followed me in, Jenna, her mom, Ethan right behind them holding a gift bag. Balloons swayed in the doorway. The smell of cake frosting hung in the air. And then Jenna froze. Her eyes landed on the paper stapled to the wall. She didn't even move at first, just blinked, like her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Ethan's face went pale. Her mother gasped. I stepped aside, letting them take it all in, the test, the printed texts, the photos, every lie laid bare in one small, pink-painted room. And then I said the words I'd been holding for weeks. "You wanted a real man's genes. Then you can have his name on the birth certificate. You can have him pay the bills, too. I'm done." Ethan didn't get angry, didn't even look embarrassed. He just smirked, that same smug grin I'd seen in every photo, every fake work lunch story, and said, "You really think this is about the baby, man?" Jenna's face drained of color. "Ethan, shut up." He ignored her. "You were never supposed to find out, but since you did, might as well know the whole thing." Her mom grabbed her arm, whispering, "Don't let him," but it was too late. Ethan looked straight at me and said, "This wasn't just Jenna's idea, she didn't just cheat, she made a deal." I stared at him. "What deal?" He shrugged. "She got her promotion, I got a kid. Everyone wins, right?" That's when Jenna finally snapped. "Stop talking," she screamed. But he didn't. He turned to me, his tone almost casual. "See, the company's insurance doesn't cover IVF unless there's a medical necessity. So she faked some paperwork, said you were infertile, said she needed an anonymous donor. But then she told me it'd be easier to use my sample since we were already, you know," he smirked. "Close." I could feel my pulse in my throat. "You're saying—" "Yeah," he interrupted. "She sold you the dream of a family just to climb the ladder. The boss eats that sympathy story up. Look at Jenna, she's been through so much. They love that crap." Her mother was crying now, muttering, "No, no, no, you promised he'd never find out." I looked at Jenna, waiting for her to deny it. But she didn't. She just stood there, frozen, lips trembling. "You used me," I said quietly. She finally spoke. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. You were safe, stable, you'd never leave, Mark." I took a step toward her. "So you let me pay for it all, the treatments, the hospital bills, the nursery, while you and your boyfriend made videos about how I wasn't man enough." She flinched. Ethan smirked again. "You gotta admit though, man, you played your part perfectly. Real stand-up guy." And then something clicked in me, not rage, not grief, just a clear, cold purpose. "Yeah," I said, "I did." That's when my phone buzzed, right on time. The notification flashed across the screen. "File upload complete, Clinic Ethics Board." I'd already sent them everything. But what they didn't know yet, what I had scheduled to post automatically to the company's shared Slack workspace, was the same folder Jenna and Ethan thought they'd hidden from me. Hazel's real story, every file, every confession, every timestamp. And in exactly 10 minutes, it would go live to every employee in their department. Jenna must have seen it on my face because she whispered, "Mark, what did you do?" I didn't answer. Ethan lunged for my phone, but I just stepped back and said, "You wanted the truth to come out someday, right? Happy early reveal." He froze. "You didn't." "Oh, I did." And then, right as I walked out of the nursery, her phone started pinging over and over. Notification sounds, one after another. Her coworkers, her boss, her friends, the secret was out. But what none of them knew, what even I didn't know yet, was that Ethan's smug little deal wasn't the real story. The real reason Jenna did it was something else. Something Ethan didn't even understand. Something that would make what she'd done look less like cheating and more like a kind of punishment. I was half asleep in that cheap motel when the knock came. 2 slow raps, a pause, then one more. I knew before I even opened the door who it was. Jenna's mother stood there, wrapped in a coat, mascara streaked down her cheeks. In her shaking hands was an envelope, thick, creased, my name written in Jenna's handwriting. "She said if things ever fell apart to give you this," she whispered. Her voice was raw. I didn't know what she meant back then, now I do. She left before I could say a word. I sat on the bed, the letter in my hands, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The paper smelled faintly like her perfume, that expensive vanilla stuff she used to wear when she wanted something. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means you finally figured everything out. But before you hate me, I need you to understand why." I almost stopped right there, but I kept going. "You were never supposed to be a father. Not because you couldn't be, but because you shouldn't be." That line hit like a punch. I remember the first time you told me about your dad, how cold he was, how he used to make you feel like a disappointment no matter what you did. I saw how that shaped you, how it made you small. You never raised your voice, never pushed back, never fought for anything. You were safe, predictable. I married you because I thought safety would make me happy, but it suffocated me. My hands started trembling as I read the next part. When we started IVF, I realized something I never wanted to admit. I didn't want a child who'd grow up to be like you. I wanted someone strong, confident, selfish enough to take up space. Someone who wouldn't flinch every time life got hard. That's why I chose Ethan. Because he's everything you're not. Every word was a knife. I told myself it was for the baby, that Hazel deserved a man's genes, not a ghost's. But the truth is, it was revenge. Revenge for every time you said, "Whatever you want, honey," instead of fighting me. Revenge for the quiet way you accepted everything. You made me feel invisible, Mark. I wanted to hurt you just enough to make you finally see me. I dropped the letter then. My chest felt hollow. She hadn't done it for love. She hadn't done it for ambition. She'd done it because I wasn't cruel enough, because I'd been kind, patient, gentle, and somehow that made me disposable. I forced myself to keep reading. I knew it would destroy you when you found out. That's the part I needed. To finally feel powerful. To finally make you break the way you used to break me with your silence. If that makes me a monster, then fine. But at least now you'll know what it feels like to be small. The last line was almost a whisper on the page. "Don't forgive me. Just remember me when you look in the mirror." I sat there for a long time, the neon light from the motel sign flickering against the window. The truth wasn't just betrayal, it was deliberate cruelty. A calculated act from someone who'd once promised to love me through everything. And she'd gotten what she wanted. For the first time in years, I wasn't quiet. I wasn't passive. I wasn't the man she could control. Now I was something else entirely. I folded the letter neatly, slid it back into the envelope, and stared at it one last time. Then I said out loud to the empty room, "You wanted me to finally fight back. Okay, Jenna, you'll get it." I walked into Jenna's office building carrying the box like it was a casserole dish you bring to a bad potluck, polite, ordinary, unremarkable. They parted in the lobby like I was someone's clumsy afterthought. I could feel the motel letter in my coat pocket, folded thin, but it wasn't what I needed right then. What I needed was everything else. The Dropbox, the texts, the clinic logs, the paternity results stapled and plain. Her team met for their weekly check-in in the glass conference room on the 10th floor. I signed in as a vendor delivery and waited in the hallway while Jenna smiled at coworkers and clicked her badge. She still had that practiced glow, the one people complimented in emails and LinkedIn posts. That smile would be the last performance she gave. When the meeting started, I walked in carrying the box and the flash drive. People looked up, puzzled. Jenna's face drained. Her boss, the one who'd loved the sympathy narrative, tried to keep the meeting on track. I set the box on the table and said, "I don't want to ruin your quarterly, but I think Hazel deserves the truth." I plugged the drive into the conference room screen. I didn't narrate, I didn't beg. The video files played. The clinic photos, Ethan cutting the cord, Jenna's recorded confession. Slack notifications started pinging as I'd scheduled. The boss's smile faded. Phones came out. Jenna's mother, who'd been seated in the back because she liked the company's catering, started shaking. People whispered. Someone laughed, then stopped. HR did what HR does best. They called a meeting, pulled me aside, asked questions, took copies. The CEO's assistant arrived, pale. Within an hour, Jenna was escorted out with her handbag, and the same stunned, practiced face people use when they realize their life is collapsing in real time. Ethan tried to charm the cameras. He failed. The company put both of them on immediate leave, pending an investigation. The clinic's ethics board called me later that afternoon and said they'd already begun a formal probe. News outlets picked it up by evening because, apparently, modern scandal has a faster clock than grief. I filed for divorce that week. I filed for temporary custody of Hazel the day after. I kept the focus strict and procedural. I handed the court the paternity test, the letter from Jenna's mother, the Dropbox files. The judge granted me temporary primary physical custody pending a full hearing. Hazel stayed with me in the motel until I found an apartment that hadn't known our story yet. People asked if I felt triumphant. I didn't. There was a moment in the courthouse when a reporter asked me if I was the villain's victim, and I watched Hazel asleep in her stroller, little fingers curled. I felt something like relief, sure. A weight lifted, but it wasn't joy. It was the quiet of a house after the last sound has been turned off. Someone had to be steady now. Someone had to give Hazel a normal she hadn't been promised. Months later, the clinic paid fines, the marketing execs apologized in memo format, Jenna's promotion was rescinded, and Ethan's name disappeared from professional directories. Jenna's mother moved in with an aunt 2 states away. Jenna disappeared from social media. No statements, no pleas. The divorce settled quietly. I took what I needed to keep Hazel safe and enrolled us both in a small pediatrician's office with good coffee and a waiting room that smelled like disinfectant and sun. I still think about what she wrote in the letter, that she wanted me to feel small. Maybe she did make me feel that way, but she misread me. I wasn't small. I was patient. Patient and observant. And patience taught me to gather proof, to wait until the right light, the right room, the right screen. The revenge, because people insist on calling it that, didn't feel like victory. It felt more like reclamation. Of truth, of agency, of a life that was being rewritten without my consent. Hazel's laugh at breakfast now is a quiet kind of comeback. When she grabs my finger and calls me duh, it's a small, sharp proof that some things are mine no one can auction away. I kept the motel letter for a while. One afternoon, months later, I took it out and burned it in the sink. The ashes floated down the drain like a small, necessary ending. On my last night in the apartment before we moved into a real house, I tucked Hazel in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You deserved better than secrets." Outside, the street lamp hummed. Inside, the house was finally mine. And Jenna, she got what she chased, power that proved empty. As for me, I kept what mattered. The rest washed away. My final thought as I turned off the light, sometimes obedience is a trap, sometimes it's a disguise. But never underestimate what a quiet man with paper and patience can do when he decides to stop obeying.